Salutations all, this is Christy Thomas, and this video lesson correlates with Chapter 9 of Understanding Interpersonal Relationships out of the textbook for interpersonal communication, which is this textbook here. I have posted previous videos that I recorded in spring of 2020. Those are for a older edition of this book. So this particular video lesson is going to touch base on things that's really not in that textbook, but are in this textbook. If you see me look off to the side, my notes are off to the side. I also want to preference this video with my kids are on spring break, so I'm hoping to get this video in one fell swoop. If I stopped abruptly and the video ends abruptly, it's because they ran in. But we'll see. I've had to restart this video like 5 times now, so fingers crossed we can get through this. So what I want to discuss first is the textbook's definition of relationship and interpersonal relationships. So a relationship is a connection established when one person communicates with another. Okay. So interpersonal communication is perception shared by two people of an ongoing interdependent connection that results in the development of relational expectations and varies in interpersonal intimacy. All right. So for the sake of this chapter, and we've talked about interdependent before throughout the semester, interdependent is if you were independent, it would not matter. It does not matter. Interdependent is that there is a varying degree of the other person's words, emotions, verbal, nonverbal, just their communication style affects you. Or you kind of play off of each other. So if you're independent, it does not matter. This is the bare bones of it. Now, like I said, we talked about throughout the semester. And for this chapter, intimacy is not just like a romantic intimacy. Intimacy, in the sake of this chapter, and as we continue on for the rest of the semester in the interpersonal relationship, excuse me, as I adjust my computer screen here. Intimacy is the shared views and lives and trust within a relationship. So yes, that's in a romantic relationship, but this intimacy is also in friendships and workplace relationships, family dynamics, all that has intimacy, because I'm sure you have a best friend that you can tell anything and everything to and you're comfortable with, and vice versa. That's intimacy, and we all have varying degrees of it. Some it's a more acquaintance, casual situation, whereas others it's very deep connection. So now that I've kind of laid out in the sense of this chapter what we mean when I say intimacy, we're going to move forward. So we discussed what interpersonal relationship is defined by the book. And it kind of just touches base and it talks about shared perception, ongoing interdependent connection, relational expectations, and interpersonal intimacy and affection in circumstance or choice and power. So let's kind of break those down a little bit better. Shared perception. This is both individuals share perception they have on ongoing relationships. That means both of them believe this relationship exists. It's not one-sided. It's not like, oh, this is the love of my life, and the other person going, we're really just friends. Or, this is my bestie. Oh, we're just kind of acquaintances. This is the shared world that you both acknowledge and agree on. Yes, we're in a relationship. Yes, we're besties. Yes, you both agree on the status of your relationship. Whatever that dynamic may be, you both agree on it. Then that's for ongoing interdependent connection. This is an ongoing interpersonal relationship is dynamic. It constantly changing and constantly evolving. at times through stages that differ in levels of trust, self-disclosure, and we've talked about self-disclosure many times in previous chapters. This is just kind of when we talk, remember the Johari window when we discussed known to us and known to others but not to us, known to us but not to others, and nobody knows. Yeah, self-disclosure is what's known to you but not everyone else, but then becomes known to others because you self-disclose. And as intimacy in a relationship deepens, the more self-disclosure we have. Okay, so that's ever evolving too. The more you interact, the more your history builds. So that's when they say it's ongoing, it's because the relationships are ever evolving. Either ever evolving by maintaining and creating deeper bonds, or ever evolving to the point that at some point there will be a de-escalation, which we will get into here in a hot second. Relational expectations. This is anytime you interact with someone, you bring a set of preformed expectations based on your socialization experiences. It could be honesty, loyalty, open communication, all that could be part of your expectations in a relationship. If you're in a romantic relationship, maybe your expectations are, it's just one-on-one. There's trust, there's loyalty, there's open communication, there's this and that. That is what they're talking about with relational expectations. And as an interpersonal relationship grows, you may discuss the expectations of your relationship. And they all are different. The dynamics are completely different from family, work, friendship, romantic. And it's ever changing. Kind of just like ongoing, it's all ever going. Sometimes these expectations can be violated, or you can be let down, so to speak. And that changes the dynamic, which is pretty odd. If you are someone who's big on trust and loyalty and stuff, and the other person in the relationship breaks your trust or, breaks your loyalty, that questions the validity of the relationship, or maybe the depth of intimacy in the relationship. It could cause a pullback. Perhaps you choose, to halt, or pull back to work, or maybe it resets the relational expectations of that relationship. Well, obviously I can't trust them with this information. They went and told these people that something that was very near and dear to me. So that's what we're talking about there. The next portion is interpersonal intimacy and affection. Now, interpersonal intimacy is, the book tells us, is the degree to which relational partners mutually accept and confirm each other's sense of self. So, in intimate relationships, our partners knows our strengths and weaknesses and accept us, and vice versa. It's the stage where you may not hide your flaws for fear of rejection. We all have quirks, or I don't even want to say flaws. The book says flaws, but we all may have our own quirks and ideas that we feel, well, if I say this or do this, or I won't be accepted. That's what we're talking about here. And then the next part is that they talk about affection. And affectionate communication is verbal messages, nonverbal gestures, and supporting activities that convey love, fondness, and a positive regard. So this all is under interpersonal intimacy and affection. So that makes sense. The level of intimacy is also reflected. You see a difference in, we'll use romantic relationships as the example here. But you can usually spot a new couple versus an old couple. And that's not saying anything bad. But maybe the level of affection varies. That doesn't mean the connection of the level varies, but they call it like the honeymoon phase in relationships, or when you're first married and you just can't get enough of each other, That's not to say there's no affection in relationships that have lasted longer, but it changes, and it's also ever evolving as well. Then they go on to discuss circumstance or choice. Relationships of circumstance are interpersonal relationships that exist because the circumstance, who your family members are, and where you work, study, and so on. So this is, co-workers, peers, classmates, all that is relationships with circumstance. And you can create interpersonal relationships based off of this just because, you may meet your best friend in grade school. And because of that, that can create this intimate relationship. Or you met them because you're in the same club, or you were on the same sports team, or perhaps you work together. So you can, meet your bestie or romantic. All that falls under relationship of circumstance. Now, also family members. I've gave the example before. I have an older brother. He's 5 years older than I am. Growing up, we very much were the brother-sister dynamic, but as we got older, when I was in my early mid-20s, late teens, early mid-20s and stuff, we became friends. We actually hung out. We had there was a group of us that hung out on the weekends and stuff. All that falls under a relationship of circumstance. The dynamic, our family dynamic, changed from just family to friends as we got older. And the last part I want to talk about that is the relationship of choice. And this is interpersonal relationships you choose to inflate, maintain, and perhaps terminate. This is, you're making the choice. If you want to be friends, if you want to be romantic, if you want to continue on. And even family dynamics, you can choose to terminate. Perhaps there is trauma there, or the ideas that you're upholding now does not adhere to the ideas that perhaps your family did. But this is where you make the choice to begin a relationship, to maintain a relationship, or to end it. So circumstance is based off of you have met someone because of circumstance, work, school, activities, hobbies, families, whatever. And choice is you see someone, you make that choice. I want to get to know them better. You make the choice to maintain the relationship, or you make the choice to terminate. Also, after that, they discuss power. And with power, it talks about how some relationships can share power and some may have the expectations one holds more over the other. That's what they're talking about here. And it's talking about here. And they also bring forth, it's also a dynamic that's discussed in the relationship as well. And if that level of power changes, it can also change the dynamic of the relationship. Underneath that, it talks about complementary relationships, and this is relationships which power is divided unevenly, one partner dominating and the other submitting. So, as a child, you have a complementary relationship with your parent. Your parent or guardian held power because they were the adult, they were the guardian. Whereas you didn't have as much power as a child, and this, shifts as you get older and become into adulthood. That's there. Then there's competitive and submissive symmetrical relationships. So a symmetrical relationship is a relationship which both partners behave toward power in the same way, or both wanting power or both avoiding it. So you both are kind of in the same boat. You either both want it or you don't. That's what they're talking about. And then the competitive symmetrical relationship is a relationship which both people vie for power and control the decision making. So here is a power struggle. Both want to be the head, both want to be in charge, both want to say. So there can be a lot of headbutting there if there is a fight for power, so to speak. And then it talks about submissive symmetrical relationship. A lot of terminologies. Say that 5 times fast. This is relationships in which neither partner wants to take control or make decisions. This is where both are like, Think of the old saying, where you want to go to, I don't know, where you want to go. Nobody can make a choice. That's what they're talking about here. And then lastly in this section is parallel relationship. Relationships in which power shifts back and forth between the partners depending on the situation. So this is where power is shifted. And power shift, it could just be because someone's more knowledgeable or they like something more. So, like, you know, perhaps you're not really care what films you like because you kind of like all genres. So your partner, your friend, or whomever maybe always picks the films because you're like, I'm good. Or it could come to like, I don't really care what we eat, but the other person's like maybe they're particular about where they eat from. So it's a tit for tat, a back and forth. So all that falls under interpersonal relationships defined and those theories that go with it. Okay, stay tuned for the next video.